Hi. So one of my biggest challenges as a teacher, and the biggest challenge that many of my students face, is the challenge to let go, the challenge to get my students to let go and feel and express rhythm, particularly groove, which is my particular obsession as a musician and as a teacher. I love groove. I love really experiencing groove and understanding it clearly in my mind. Groove is a structure. It's a non-linear structure. It's kind of like poetic meter, which can build into like an epic poem, has lots of, different verses and sections. This is how meter works in music as well, how rhythm, how groove works. So to really feel that groove and really, really express it, as I say, is a big challenge. So it doesn't matter what kind of groove. It could be just a really simple arpeggio type, broken chord type thing. It's got to have this quality of groove, of unfolding, so we sort of know where we are in the unfolding poetry, the unfolding kind of sense of it. Or it could be a more syncopated type groove. It doesn't matter if it's that kind of rhythm, or maybe even a very rubato-y, very hyper expressive. It's still got this groove, this da 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 dee da da. Dee, da, 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 da. Still got this groove underneath it, this sense of flexible unfolding pulse that creates rhythmic structure. So it doesn't matter what kind of style of music it is. There, for me, there is always still an essential property of music that it has groove. It has this sense of groove. If we want it to sound entertaining, I guess if we want it to sound not entertaining, maybe inscrutable and strange, then maybe we could take groove out. But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people that want to play music in a more naturally musical way, and they can struggle. They can struggle to do this. What is it that I'm asking them to do? I'm asking them to feel the groove in their body. Maybe you can tell when I play. If I play sort of with a strong sense of groove, it's hard for me not to move my body. I mean, I can try and force myself not to move my body because the feeling of flow, the feeling of a wave is more internal. So it's not really necessary to move your body a lot to feel groove, but it's a feeling in the body. As I say, it's a feeling of flow that happens within us. So I say feeling of flow, a feeling of unfolding, like a wave, not something choppy and robotic. Doesn't matter about, as I say, about the style of music. It can be, something quite strict. It still feels like a wave. It doesn't feel like that. For it to be rhythmic, it doesn't feel like that. If I play it with a metronomic sort of robotic feeling, it doesn't feel so rhythmic. And actually, when people try and do that, one of the problems is they go out of time. So why is it hard, as I keep saying, to convince people to feel rhythm? So to feel it in your body, it's a bit like asking you to get up and dance when all the lights are on and you haven't had a drink and there's no one else on the dance floor. It's kind of scary. It's kind of embarrassing. I'm going to talk a little bit about why people are embarrassed about that. Varies very much from person to person, but there are perhaps some universal principles that we could examine as to why that's embarrassing for many of us. The other thing that rhythm has to feel like is, like I keep saying, like poetry. So it's a telling, like I'm telling you this. So I'm being naturally expressive. I'm not being mechanical and then adding an expression. So think about that for a minute. If you learn a piece technically, mechanically, and you don't have that natural sense of telling, that natural sense of flow and rhythm in your playing from the word go, and then you add expression, is that really rhythmic playing? Is it really rhythmically expressive? Because I make this link between being rhythmic and being expressive. The two for me are one. If you play with groove, it means you're playing with a natural expressive sense of musical storytelling or poetry. So we have to tell it. Even if I'm playing just a scale or something, even if I was playing a scale, personally, I'd want it to have rhythm and therefore some storytelling. It's got this quality of this followed by that, then this followed by that. Now that's the structure. I teach that. I teach this idea of the rhythmic matrix, this idea of structure, rhythm having structure. And that's very powerful and that's very important. And that gives us, I think, the security, a sense of security so that we can then at least attempt to let go and tell it, to tell it like a poem. Da da dee da dee da 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 dee da dee da da da. I'm saying it to you. I'm saying it with my fingers. I am singing it, if you will, but singing it in a telling way, not in a stiff way. Because when people sing, they sometimes lose their natural sense of telling that we have when we speak. So it's a natural sense that we have when we speak rhythmically, we make it tell, and we take it out when we play music. Also, we take out this flow in the body for the reason I mentioned before, perhaps that it feels a bit embarrassing, like we're dancing or something. Why is it embarrassing to stop telling it? Well, I think it's because, well, let me put it like this, just try rapping. You know, speaking in time is kind of difficult if you try it, give it a go, see how it feels, see if it feels embarrassing, because it kind of does. This is the weird thing. I mean, I'm not a rapper, so I feel embarrassed doing that. And I think there's almost a sense of that when we play. I'm not embarrassed when I play the piano anymore because I've practiced letting go and not feeling that embarrassment. So we feel embarrassed. And why? I mean, I'm so interested in this. Why? What is it that causes us not to feel able to just let go and do this? So it's an emotional thing. It's like on some level, we are, as I say, ashamed, embarrassed, scared of being judged. And I think that goes all the way back to early childhood, when we were naturally very expressive. And every single child that has ever lived will have had the experience of being hushed, maybe sometimes quite angrily, by the big people around them, especially if you're in the supermarket and you decide to get very excited about something you've just spotted over there. You're a little 4-year-old, 3-year-old, 2-year-old. You get very excited. What are the chances that the adults with you are going to go, shh, no, don't do that, don't. Like, you get much more angry than that. But even that's enough to create a feeling of shame in a child. And if that happens sufficiently often, I suppose it gets very deeply embedded in us that we mustn't be expressive in that way. So am I actually saying that playing music in a natural way is expressive in the way that a small child is expressive, rather than expressive in the way that an adult is expressive? Yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that to play really rhythmically, to really let go and feel the rhythm, is childlike. No matter how sophisticated the music might be, it doesn't matter. The mode I'm in is kind of, I want one of those. Can you buy that for me? And obviously, you know, that memory of being in the supermarket, shh, is somehow bedded in us. It's in our amygdala. It's somewhere deep in our brain structure. And it can stop us. Of course, as adults, we get very good at putting a brave face on and being in a kind of performance mode. Some people are so good at that performance mode, I actually call them darksiders, people that can perform music without needing to have a model to focus on. I need a model to focus on, and I need to practice letting go. And this is what I teach. Some people don't seem to have that problem. They can just be kind of almost like a child whilst they're still coming from their adult mind, their adult ego, if you will. But for most of us, it's tricky. We feel this sense of inhibition. This is, to me, the basic blockage. It's the blockage that in my list of blockages in my teaching, I put it at the very, very bottom, like it's the last blockage. It's the ultimate blockage. It's expressive inhibition. And we all have it to some degree. As I say, very few of us have it to a very small degree, but most of us have it to a significant degree that it actually gets in the way and stops us from being naturally musical and naturally rhythmic. There is the basic kind of performance anxiety thing as well. This desire to get results. That's there too. I mean, people struggle to speak in public in a way that's naturally expressive because of that, because they feel just self-conscious about their performance. And that is a whole other thing. To me, that's the first blockage that I list in my list of blockages. That's the very first one, because it's the one that kind of, I think nearly all of us are perhaps most aware of, that we have this desire to get it right or to be worried about whether it's good, what we're doing. Of course, that's a real blockage. But, I think most people are aware of that. They tackle it, they work on that. And yet still this other thing is there, this expressive inhibition, especially around rhythm. They'll play the notes, they'll play them, they'll work on technique, they'll work on it. But will they really work on rhythm without working on letting go of this feeling of inhibition? It's not easy. And as I say, that feeling of being like a child is kind of essential. And when you do let go and you feel like a child, how does it feel? It feels like you're playing, like you're playing with your cuddly toys, and you go, you sit there and you sit there. It's this feeling of freedom, this feeling that there's a flexibility and an elasticity to the groove. It feels like it cradles you, it holds you, you feel free. You kind of feel a bit frisky, a bit naughty, because it isn't a familiar state as an adult. I often think if an animal has been held captive and then it's released, it might be a bit nervous at first as it comes out of its cage, but then it usually feels very excited to be free. So music has this, even that very somber bit of Chopin I was playing then, it feels, the word I often use is defiant. It feels like I'm defying the part of me that wants to be very civilized and very, very good. And so we have to practice this. We have to practice it inside of our playing. Obviously, having a model, having a clear structural sense of rhythm and knowing where we are in the structure of the groove, this makes this an awful lot easier. It's much easier to practice letting go if you have something stable and solid to focus on, something that you trust, something that you know works. That really helps. Trouble is, some of the things that we work on to try and help us often get in the way. We might work on technique, we might work on making sure we play with the right fingers, but this doesn't improve your rhythm. This doesn't make your rhythm better. It can actually stiffen it up even more. So we need, I think, to find in our practice something that challenges that part of us that wants to be good and civilized and adult. Whether it's the first blockage of as I mentioned, of needing to get it right and needing to get results, and that's the thing that makes us perform and be a bit forced, even if it's that blockage, or the other one, the ultimate blockage of expressive inhibition, because we don't want to have that childlike feeling because it's embarrassing. Whichever of those two, they're both really helped by this idea of becoming outrageously free. And finding that freedom, finding that ability to not care about results and to not care whether we are being uncivilized when we play music. Because music kind of is, because it's expressive of deep feelings from the body and soul. It's not something reasonable like The words I'm saying now are reasonable. They're delivering nice civilized concepts, you could argue. When I'm playing, what am I saying? I'm saying raw feelings. And so that's, even the most seemingly civilized piece of music you could possibly imagine. I don't know. Let's see. I don't know, that's probably wasn't a great example because it feels very childlike, doesn't it? It's got that, that very innocent quality. How about that Bach I played before? Even though that might seem quite civilized and grown up, the way I have to feel to play it has to have this feeling of freedom, this feeling of like almost coming out of captivity and running a bit wild and being a bit outrageous. And how we work on that, how I work on that with each individual student, obviously, is as varied as there are the numbers of people I work on. There isn't a formula, but coaching is a funny thing because it is a conversation between you and the coachee, you and the student, and you discover things together. There's no cure-all, there's no one-size-fits-all for that. And yet I think these principles that I'm talking about here apply pretty universally. There is always, pretty much always, I think, this tendency to be embarrassed at that childlike expression. And so the need to let go, the process of letting go is going to be different from person to person. But the fact that we all need to let go for very similar reasons, I think is it's one of the principles of my teaching. So, it's a journey of exploration. If you're not going to have a coach to explore it with, you can coach yourself. You can explore it yourself. But I think it's definitely a worthwhile area to explore as a music student.